every word and every act. His assurance and His love. Why fear when I am here? He said. And for every devotee, He is here, there, and everywhere. Painfully guiding every step like a dance teacher. As the bud blossomed to reveal 1,000 petals, it can only be said that the fragrance of the first few years is unique.
At this time, probably it's appropriate to talk about another stalwart devotee. We mentioned the name a couple of times already. Her name is Sakama. Swami would call her, and other devotees would very fondly refer to her as Coffee Pudi Sakama, because she had coffee plantations in Coorg. Sakama Coffee Works at Bangalore.
Bull Temple Road.
At Bull Temple Road. Again, we'll mention this road many, many times. The devotees who came later would speak of how she took the place of Subbamma, Ishwaramma, after Subbamma left. Swami would follow the schedule that Sakama lays for him. You know, that's the place Swami gave Sakama. If devotees would come and offer something to Swami, Swami would say, "Arey, Sakama will see. You'll all get into trouble for giving me this." And so, otherwise Swami would say, "Now Sakama is not there. Give me whatever you got from Bangalore. Give it to me now." That was the sweet relationship she had with Swami, and she would go after Swami, get him ready for bath, chase him around this old mandir, manage to catch him for bath and make him sit and eat. The way she came to Swami's fold was very, very different, to say the least. One day she was in her bungalow in Coorg. She was doing prayers, and generally she's a very religious woman. She doesn't like to be disturbed when praying. But one of her servants comes into her prayer room and says, "Amma, there's somebody who has come into the compound in a car, and he's insisting that he wants to see you right away. And he seems to appear like a sadhu. So why didn't you come and see him?" So she's very annoyed in the beginning, but she comes out and she sees this very elderly looking man. The way Professor Kasturi writes in Satyam Shivam Sundaram, he had a very reverent looking beard. Right? A beard, when you look at it, you want to have reverence for. So he says, here was this man who was tall, fair, and looked like a sadhu from the Himalayas. Professor Kasturi writes, he comes in a car which is equally old, and in the place of the number plate, there's a name plate which reads Kailash Committee. At the wheel, she sees a teenage boy, and the first look at this teenage boy, she wonders, this boy looks so young, who gave him a license? But a weird pair nevertheless. There's this old sadhu-like man and this young boy driving his car. So she comes and she very cordially invites him into the house. He comes in and she offers flowers at his feet, and she offers some fruits for him to eat. And this man, he says, "I am not a person who eats anything at any time. I have come here to invite you to become a part of this Kailash committee." Right? That's what he says. You have to do that by giving a donation of 1,000 rupees. So she says, all right, because she's a very, very philanthropic lady. In fact, it is recorded that the king of Mysore gave her a title called Lokaseva Parayani. That was a title given by the king of Mysore because she has done immense amount of charity. So 1,000 rupees definitely was a big sum in 1940s, but she readily says, all right, no problem, and she brings the money. So in the meanwhile, this man writes out a receipt, puts her name, puts the membership fee, and says that now she is a part of Kailash committee. But weirdly, when she gives the money, he gives the receipt and he says, you keep the money also, I'll come back later and take it. And she wonders, what is all this fuss about? Comes and says, I immediately want to see you, and pulls you out of the prayer and says, give me 1,000 rupees, gives a receipt, and he says, keep the money, I'll come and take it later. So she doesn't know what to do. She keeps the money and she keeps the receipt, and they just go out of the house. By the time she could come out to the courtyard, the car is already gone. But many years later, when she comes and she has the darshan of Swami in somebody's house, strangely, she looks at Swami, and Swami seems to be having the features of the old man as well as the driver. She looks from one side, he looks like the old man. From the other side, he looks like this teenage driver. And the first thing Swami says is, where is that 1,000 rupees you promised to give me? Right? This is how Doddamane Sakama or Coffee Podi Sakama comes. Like how Subbamma and Karnam Kamalamma were instrumental in the old mandir coming to be. She was one person who is responsible for this beautiful Prashanti Mandir, a devotee who's contributed immensely to Swami, and probably a place which many of us can envy. We wish we would have been Swami Sakama.
Just about a fortnight before the Pata Mandiram was completed, this devotee whom we spoke about, Tirumal Rao, he began to develop a severe stomachache. He developed a severe stomachache, and he was a very well-to-do person. So his wife immediately rushed him to a big hospital in Madras, and they said that this looks like a very serious problem, we'll have to do a surgery. And she agrees for the surgery. When she agrees for the surgery, they get a paper and she reads. She is to sign that paper. When she reads, it is written there that if anything happens and if Tirumal Rao is to die, we are not to blame. You are going to take the blame. Now, she was very shocked with this. She said, nothing doing, don't do any surgery. And she takes Tirumal Rao and rushes to Puttaparthi. She comes and tells Swami that, Swami, Tirumal Rao is having a stomachache. Swami says, I know. Tell him to come, let him rest with me tonight. And so Swami takes him along. He goes to Karnam Subbamma's home, and at night Tirumal Rao sleeps on the bed next to Swami. In the morning, when people come to see, they are shocked because they see blood stains on the whole sheet of Tirumal Rao. And nearby there are also surgical implements. God knows from where they came, but they are there. But Tirumal Rao is full fine, and he says, no, stomachache is not there. They say, are you sure? And when he lifts up and he checks, he can see the marks of the stitches. Stitches are also there, but there is no pain. He has absolutely no pain, and he's completely healed of that. On another occasion, Tirumal Rao had a similar kind of pain in the back. And this time, the same doctors in Madras diagnosed him to be having a tumor. They said it's a tumor the size of an apple. And when he had to get it operated, they said, we are scared to operate because it is very close to your spinal cord. If by chance it touches there, you may get paralyzed. Don't know what happens, we are not sure. So once again, they just came to Puttaparthi. And when they came, Swami said, you come, and took him into the room. There was also another person present there. And then Swami gently stroked him on the head and then stroked that tumor. And when he did that, Tirumal Rao got anesthetized. What a wonderful way to give anesthesia. And then the other person is watching in horror as Swami just begins to, he materializes a blunt instrument, holds it, and with his hand he's just squeezing out a tumor and plucking it out the way you will take juice out of an orange, And he's getting shocked, And then Swami squeezes it out and pulls out, and there is a lot of blood that is there. Swami takes a wet cloth, wipes all the blood off his hand, wipes everything, and then materializes Vibhuti, puts it there in that little pit, and then ties one white cloth, and then gently pats Tirumal Rao again, who wakes up. Swami says, now don't worry, just take rest for 2-3 days, you'll be fine. And that is how that tumor got healed. I don't think that Swami needs to do all these gory, gruesome things, but possibly it is for that devotee who was watching. Because if Swami had just tapped and the tumor had gone, they might have credited it to luck or something else. That's what happens. When we see something miraculous, we say, this is lucky, or we don't know, maybe there's some reason we don't know yet. It's an undiscovered scientific fact. No, God must be crying. Because if He does something that you'll explain it and say, this is how it happened. If He does something that you can't explain, you'll tell, this is an unexplained scientific fact. When will you agree that it's a miracle? And I just thought this is an interesting photograph to see. This photograph, Swami was forced to pose for in a studio, courtesy Tirumal Rao. He wanted to give the spiritual look to Swami. So he made Swami sit like that, put that garland, gave one rosary in his hand and took a photograph. And out of love for Tirumal Rao, Swami accepted, and this is a photograph that was clicked.
When I see this picture, I remember when we were students, Many of these boys used to take pictures of Swami to him so that he could autograph, and they would take a sketch pen and a photograph. And there was this boy who had taken a lot of black and white pictures of Swami, right? And this was one of those pictures. I clearly remember Swami was standing in the portico. This picture came up in the sequence. Swami picked it up and just tore it like that. Swami was never fond of this picture, because Swami would say, even when he posted, he said, hey, people will think that I did penance like this. People will think I'm able to do all what I can do because of, doing penance this way. And in the meanwhile, the grand mandir is ready, right? The grand Patha Mandir. And how grand it is 20 feet by 10 feet. That's how big the mandir is. In the meanwhile, it was decided, as it was getting ready, that 14th of December happened to be Vaikuntha Ekadashi on that year, 1945. So they requested Swami whether they can have the inauguration. And interestingly, they called it Graha Pravesham, right? Graha Pravesham actually means entering a new house. But this is not a house, this is going to be a mandir. But nevertheless, Swami agreed that 14th of December could be the date. And almost 2 weeks before that, I think so, it must have been first few days of December, all these devotees from Bangalore and Madras, they come and camp in Puttaparthi so that they can get this mandir ready. And around this time, I think Swami is still traveling in the month of November. Swami is still traveling. Swami has gone to Madras. Swami has made his trip to Tirupati. And this is the time when Subhamma is sinking and sinking and sinking. As soon as she dies, and Swami revives Subhamma, gives her that water. That was a prayer that she had, that when she was dying, Swami should pour water into her mouth. This happened in November 25th. Now, that's the day she passes away. Swami, after blessing Subhamma, must have stayed back, because after that, this preparations for inauguration of the mandir was getting busier. So all these people were putting up festoons, they were getting flowers, getting the whole place decorated. And all through, do you think Swami is going to sit in a room and give instructions? No, Swami was also climbing the ladders. Swami was climbing the roof, stringing garlands together. Because Swami would say, this is what gives me joy. To be of help in whatever you do, even if it is doing for me, to be of help in that gives me joy. So Swami was also being part of that. And finally the day comes, and what you see here is actually the invitation card for the Graha Pravesham, the inauguration. This is the one in Telugu, and that is the one on the right side in English, and of course in Tamil, because a lot of devotees from Madras were there, and with a spelling and spell correction. 1945 August, they had the Akhanda Bhajan, the first 24-hour bhajan, which became an annual event. But with the Akhanda Bhajan starting, the SAI Mandali came into being. These 10 families formed the SAI Mandali. And so this is an invite going out on behalf of the SAI Mandali to all the devotees, inviting them to attend the inauguration of the mandir. And on that particular day, they say that the celebration and the decoration was complete because the flower merchants, we said how Y.R. Narayanappa and his friends, the flower merchants started coming to Swami. They gift an entire carpet which could cover the entire hall. So with that, everything is ready. That day's celebrations begin with a procession starting from Karnam Subhamma's house. So very aptly it starts from the Karnam's house. And Swami is taken around the entire village in a palanquin. There is a Shirdi Baba's bust on one side and Swami's bust on the other side. And even to this day, these two statues are there in the Kalyan Mandapam. If you can go, and there is an altar, which was initially the place where Swami used to sit and do bhajans. They still have these two statues, of course, I think painted over and over again. But the procession started this way. It went around the entire village, and having spoken so much about the hostility which was there in the village, one can understand the jealousy which must have arisen in seeing this grandeur with all this kind of paraphernalia happening around them. So a lot of these devotees who came from these different villages, different towns, they all got their own prasadam. So all those prasadams were laid out in front of the altar. That was how the altar looked. As you can see, the altar was filled with pictures of Shirdi Baba and Swami. Shirdi Baba, Swami, Shirdi Baba, Swami, Shirdi Baba, Swami. In different poses. I think a lot of them of the same pose too. So then Swami graced the occasion and the devotees with group photos. You could see Swami patiently sitting there. And all these prasadams which were brought were laid out in front of the altar as it was seen there. So some of the villagers, they thought that this is an opportunity to play a little bit of mischief. So they sneaked in with their plate of laddus, but it was not ordinary laddus, it was poisoned laddus. So the idea was that these prasadam will be offered. After the aarti is offered, they would just take randomly plates and start distributing prasadam to all the devotees who were there. When somebody picked up this plate of laddus, Thirumal Rao was there. Swami stopped them and said, "Don't take these laddus. These laddus are poisoned." Swami commands them to dig a pit and throw this laddu into that pit, and the rest of the celebration goes by.
And one magical thing that happens that day is Swami goes to a piece of land just adjacent to the mandir, and he touches the ground with his hand and says, "Dig here." And when they dig very close to the ground, they get sweet water. That is something very rare in this whole area. We have highly saline water. It is having fluoride and all these problems. That is a sweet water well which becomes a perennial well which supplies water not only to the Pathamandiram but also to the people of the village in the hottest months of summer. A village that gave all this trouble to Swami, in return Swami is giving possibly his first water project there. A water project that he created out of the wave of his hand. Now see, this is how the Pathamandiram was. In the front there was a veranda, and what you see as dressing and living, those are the two rooms for Swami. After which there's a bhajan hall, and a bhajan hall with the altar there on the west. Then a back veranda with two living rooms for devotees, that's all. That's all is the privacy that Swami had. One had to cross beyond the back veranda and cross the ground that is there, the backyard, and then the bathroom was located. That was how simple the Pathamandiram was. And when the Prashanti Nilayam Mandir was being built, Ishwaramma wondered and said, "Why are you building such a big place? You go to the Pathamandiram and see how small it is." But at that time she felt, where will you fill this place? Very soon it got filled. It began to overflow. In fact, they had to put up temporary structures just beside the Pathamandiram to feed the devotees who would be coming. This was how the lunch and dinner sessions would be, with Swami there, all the devotees around. Look at that. What beautiful times. Just looking at this picture, we can get the joy. That is what has become today the Kalyana Mandapam, that huge building. And even to this day, next to the Pedda Venkamaraju Kalyana Mandapam, there is this little Pathamandiram where the two busts are kept, one of Swami, one of Shirdi Baba. There is also an interesting object. It's called the Om Stone. It was given to Swami by devotees from Kuppam. That was the slab on which Swami used to sit facing the altar, leading the bhajans. Because Swami would be the person who would get up early in the morning, sweep and mop the Pathamandiram, decorate all the idols and photographs with flowers, and sit waiting for the devotees to come so that he would lead sing the bhajans. With this, we will come to the formal conclusion of our satsang. We began from that point in time when Swami had declared his avatarhood, and today we have reached that point in time when the Pathamandiram has been inaugurated.
In that mandir which Swami was hoping that each one of us will build, that is precisely why the reason we went into every detail. This person gave kadapa slab, that person gave the tiles, this person gave cement. It is because as devotees they came together and built this mandir for Swami, and probably it is so that as devotees each one of us will labor all through our lives to build this one mandir for Swami. And as Swami would always say, I accept only one-seater sofas. Don't give me two-seater sofas. One Swami and one the world. I accept only one-seater sofas. So with that prayer that Swami, just as this mandir was built for you with all love and all devotion with all the devotees, may we labor all through our life to build this mandir in each of our hearts and offer it to you, and please grace by come and living in it forever and ever.